I'm Drew, the storyteller. I don't like to think of myself as a pretty average guy. By that, I mean I do guy stuff, like having a couple beers with my buddies while we watch the big game. I like to argue about sports and politics every chance I get. All the normal stuff. I even do the social media thing. I have a couple hundred friends on Facebook, and a few of them I actually know in real life. Today I'm going to tell you the story about how I got a chance to meet one of my internet friends for the first time. This was an experience that would forever change my life. This story is 100% factual, partially. One day I was on my phone checking my page, see who posted what and who commented on my stuff. When I got that familiar ding sound that told me someone was messaging me, I smiled immediately. I think I'm trained to get a little excited by that sound, like I was one of Pavlov's dogs or something. Anyway, I clicked on the button and saw that it was my friend Jimmy. Jimmy was a cool guy. I don't remember when or how we became friends on here, but we chatted quite a bit and he just impressed me as a really mellow and smart kind of guy. Jimmy's message read, "Coming to the US next month and I'd love to see you in the real world if I can. No homo." I laughed and replied, "That would be cool, man," and I meant it too. Come to find out, Jimmy was spending a week not only in the US next month, but he was going to be staying in my hometown. How cool is that, I thought. We chatted several times during the next month. We already chatted pretty frequently, but now that he was kind of coming to visit, we chatted even more. I told him about all the cool places to visit, and we made a deal that we'd go check out a few of them together, if he had the time. I have to admit that I was pretty excited about meeting a cool internet person, and the fact that he was from the UK made it even cooler. I told him that I couldn't wait to hear him speak with that funny accent, and he promptly replied that we're the ones with the accent. We joked and planned, and at times I caught myself feeling giddy, almost as if I were planning to meet up with a hot chick or something. But hey, I was just doing what normal guys do when they get a chance to see an old friend. Because that's what we kind of were, old friends. We've been friends on the internet for a couple years, and I felt like I knew him pretty well. Well, the day finally came, and since Jimmy didn't have to check in with his company until the next day, I offered to pick him up from the airport. We greeted each other like family and laughed and chatted like old ladies as we made our way through the parking lot to my car. I noticed Jimmy's expression got a little weird when I bumped into somebody and didn't say excuse me. They were walking directly in my path. There was plenty of room for them to get around me, but anyway, his face looked curious again when two other people bumped him and didn't say excuse me. I told him, "Welcome to the big city, my boy. It's thick traffic whether you're in a car or not." I think the hustle and bustle of the big city was a bit much for Jimmy, and he probably had a little jet lag as well, because he said that he wasn't in the mood for a grand tour just yet. He just wanted to find a hotel and get a little bit of rest. I said to him, "You don't need a hotel. I have a big house and I live close to downtown, so you're staying with me for at least a day or two. I insist." Jimmy said okay, and that was that. We arrived at my house and I helped him bring in his luggage. He asked where the shower was and I showed it to him along with the location of towels and all the other normal guy essentials. Afterward, Jimmy went straight to bed. In the couple hours that he slept, I put dinner on and turned on some TV. Jimmy woke up to the smell of my awesome home cooking and the sound of me yelling at the TV. I was telling the good guys to catch those filthy animals on my favorite show, Cops the Bad Guy Getters. He had that curious look on his face again, so I asked him what's up. He said nothing. "What are you cooking?" I told him it's a real American delicacy, steak and potatoes with none of those fancy vegetables getting in the way. To which he responded, "Drew, I'm sorry, but I'm a vegetarian." Now it was my face's turn to get curious. I wondered how this apparently normal guy could not like steak. Oh well, I guess it's a foreigner thing. We resolved the issue by ordering him something from a place called the Dirty Tomato. It's one of those trendy little restaurants that's vegetarian. Not the kind of place you'd see me at, but hey, to each his own. So we ate and sat down in front of the TV. My head swiveled back and forth between the TV and looking at the curious looks on Jimmy's face. I got the feeling that Jimmy wasn't too big on cop shows, so I switched to the sports channel. Right on time to see the ref make the most ridiculous call in the history of sports. I screamed loud enough for the ref to hear me through the TV. Did you see that, man? That bum needs to be taken into a dark alley and taught a lesson about making calls like that. I got up and ran to the kitchen to grab us a couple beers, and when I came back to the living room, there was Jimmy with this now familiar look on his face. He informed me that he doesn't drink. Now I was beginning to get curious for real. I mean, what is this guy into? Clearly it isn't sports, cop shows, beer, or steaks. I quickly pivoted to the news channel. Okay, I got it. Here you go. Everybody likes the news, right? I bet they even have news in the UK, I said. Jimmy didn't laugh. He just replied, "That's true, Drew." So we spent the next hour watching news about murder, fires, floods, and all manner of devastation and catastrophe. I commented on every story, mostly about how people bring a lot of this stuff on themselves. Like, why in the world would someone live so close to a forest? You know a fire's bound to break out sooner or later. I started noticing that I was doing most of the talking. I guess he's one of those quieter kind of guys, I thought. So I mentioned to him that it was getting late and I was about to head to bed. The next day, Jimmy and I went touring the city, and we had a great time too. But I did get into a little fist fight with a guy over a parking space. Later, I dropped Jimmy off at his job, and he promised to give me a call back after work. Now he was in a more talkative mood when I picked him up. He asked me a bunch of questions about my anger. I told him again and again that I don't really have any anger. He pointed out that while we were driving, I flipped off a minivan with a bunch of kids in it, and I told him that's normal. People need to learn how to drive and that kind of stuff wouldn't happen. He talked about how I told a homeless guy to get a job, and of course he mentioned the fight I had. All of which I explained away because they were no big deal. This was just an average day. We decided to drop the conversation and get something to eat. I found a place that catered to both of our tastes. The meal was pretty good, but a little overpriced, and the waiter was slow to refill our glasses, so I let him know. Otherwise, how would he get better? I proceeded to eat 90% of my meal, and then I told the waiter what I didn't like about it, and I demanded a discount. Jimmy did not look impressed like I thought he would. In fact, he looked the opposite of impressed. I just chalked it up to maybe he had an upset stomach or something. Anyway, I boxed up the rest of my food and we headed out. I saw Jimmy reach into his pocket and I told him, "Don't worry about the tip, I got this." And I gave the waiter exactly 14% as his tip. Jimmy looked at the tip, then back at me, then he just turned and walked away. On the ride home, he brought up my anger again, and after I insisted that I had no anger, I started to get angry. He was coming at me like a nagging female. I told him, "Look, man, I'm not letting anybody push me around, and I don't know what you're going on about." We rode the rest of the way home in silence. I took Jimmy to find a hotel the next morning, and I didn't see or hear from him anymore until he got back home and messaged me on the internet. I started to ignore his message, but I went ahead and replied. He apologized about being a nag. Of course, he should have done that. And he mentioned to me that the whole normal thing was not that normal to him. He wasn't into violent TV shows and sports because, as he said, they affect people's thinking, making them more inclined to be hostile toward others. He said that he cared about people and animals and didn't wish any harm to any other living thing. I said, "First of all, I'm old enough to know the difference between TV and real life. I don't watch sports shows and then run outside and tackle people. Get out of here with that crap," I said. "And how weird is it that you care about cows and shit? All this time, I thought you were another normal guy like me, Jimmy." He said, "I thought the same, Drew." So we agreed to disagree, although I knew I was right and he was an idiot. Speaking of idiots, there was a guy driving in front of me while I was going to work this morning. I was about to tell Jimmy just how much of a dummy he was when all of a sudden I heard sirens outside and they were getting louder and louder. It almost sounded like they were pulling up outside my house. So I got up and peeked through the curtains and yep, what do you know, the cops were coming to my house. They banged on my door and when I opened it, I was shocked as they tackled me to the floor yelling and screaming. I yelled back, "What the hell's going on?" as they put the cuffs on me. When I got down to the station, they finally let me in on the surprise. It was about that imbecile that cut me off in traffic this morning. The one that almost killed me. The one I proceeded to follow to his destination, and when he got out of his car, I sideswiped his ass. I had to let him know who he was messing with. I just did my thing and went on my merry way. It turns out that I smashed him between my car and his and severed some internal stuff or something, and he died. I told the cops that I didn't hit that filthy animal all that hard. He must have been sick already or something. After all, he was one of those type of guys. The ones that you guys chase and lock up on your TV show every night. Hey, one less douchebag to worry about, right guys? One of the cops looked at me and replied, "You're right about that, sir." Then he looked at the other cop and said, "Get this piece of shit out of my sight."